Today I had an interesting conversation with one of our clients that made me think of kind of a misconception that some people have. The average person who's like a building consultant, okay? Like you see like a person from JS Held or someplace like that. As a general rule, those folks are going to go out and they're going to look at a loss. When they look at the loss, they're going to then put that to paper. They're going to actually write up an estimate. In our world here, we do that a little differently. We happen to believe that assessing a loss and writing a loss are two different functions. We found when we tested this years and years ago that there were so many dependencies when that person out in the field was writing that estimate that it became difficult to give the people in the field any large flow because they were always stopping and having to grind out estimates. And very often they were working on an estimate 2 or 3 weeks to get something large out. And so that kept them out of the field and that kept other jobs delayed. So we looked at what could we do better? And we looked at it, and our estimation staff, which writes a lot of remote estimates from people all over North America and a few other places, said, hey, wait a minute, why don't we treat our field guys almost like they're a client of ours otherwise? And so we started doing that, and we noticed a couple of things. One, that our field guys got better at assessing a loss because they were less worried about doing the paper on the backside. We noticed that our field guys were much happier because they weren't having to grind it out behind a desk when what they really did really well was go climb and crawl and document things in the field. And we found that the quality of the estimates was going way, way up because we had a very qualified estimator who could then also reach out to the people in the field and say, can you explain this? Could you revisit this? What is this? Does this seem logical to you? And by default, it wound up creating multiple levels. But the biggest thing it did besides that is it took that file that normally took 2-3 weeks and turned it around in 2 or 3 days. Because during the process of actually documenting the loss, we started moving that data about 15 minutes after we arrived on site. We started moving that data all the way out into back up to our shop. So the guys that do nothing but sketch all day long, 24 hours a day, they begin to sketch the building. The people who organize and label pictures started organizing, labeling pictures. The people that parse the scope coming in would look at the scope and make sure it made sense, make calls if it didn't, check on things, check on the quality of things, maybe call a vendor, call a client, whatever the case may be. And then the estimation staff would be working on it in almost real time. So what usually would take one guy 2 or 3 weeks, it will take us 2 or 3 days to do the same thing. And generally speaking, when we go to the large loss, we do the large loss, and just a couple of days after that, we turn in the estimate. In our shop, we say we bow at the altar of velocity for a reason. It really does matter. There's literally almost nothing in the insurance claim process that doesn't work well by velocity. I was also talking to another client today about some umpire duty. And you know, this here again, there was another area where velocity mattered. You know, because once again, when we do appraisals or umpiring or whatever, we have this back office of this huge estimation team. I have this ability to get in the field, see some things in the field, push it back up to my people behind the desk, and then turn out something really good for me then to go over and make any alterations that I need to make. So as an appraiser, I'm turning things in 2 or 3 days, unless it's just extremely large and it takes us longer to look at it. We bring a whole team. As an umpire, I'm bringing things back in 72 hours, usually from me making the decision and sending it to my crew. Basically, kind of like, I'll usually do it on the plane, to be honest. So I just thought I would explain this, and it's this division of talent. And I thought I thought for all of us, it might be a reasonable thought to understand that, because you do one thing well, it doesn't mean you'll do another thing well. In my shop, I literally ask people to please not ask me to manage anything in finance, because I hate it. Because I'm just not good at it. It's not my thing. Could I do it if I had to? Well, yeah, but I don't have to. And I'm not going to do something I don't absolutely have to do, because it would violate this whole tenet of velocity. I took the time this afternoon and I actually called some of our field guys, and I talked to them about this, some of the guys who still could estimate if we wanted them to. And it was interesting what one of them said. He said, when we switched doing that, because he's been with us for a good while, he said, when we switched doing that, he said it was like taking like 40% of my brain and getting it back. He said it was like I could spend more time actually figuring out what was wrong. He said the same was true when we gave him the Matterport. It seemed to take a percentage or two out of that because it allowed us to 3D it. So if that person missed something, or they didn't have to spend half their day sketching some large building, only to have it put in Exactimate later. And they just agree that they've just gotten better in the more or less what he said. He called it peace, and the peace of being able to be with the loss. We have a saying about in the field, we say if we stay with her long enough, she'll always tell us the truth. And it's sometimes hard to get that loss to tell you the truth if what you're doing is all you're doing is sketching a building and writing out the kind of notes you do with necessarily if you were writing the estimate. And then I actually worried about putting the estimate back on the backside. That's the way we do it. I'm sure there's other ways to do all these things that I talk about. But I just want to say about this that no matter what you do in this game, no matter what you do in business, I would bet you just about anything that if you would cut those duties in half, where the thing that you're good at you were doing and the thing someone else was doing they were doing it, you would see the same thing we've seen. Happier people, more productive people, happier customers, better growth. That's all I got. I hope you have a great day. I'm going to take you on some losses here shortly. We've got an interesting fire I'm going to walk you through here shortly and talk to you about what I do when I assess the large loss and some of the problems that come with these. I'm going to take you kind of through all the imaginations of it from basically when it happened to assessing it, to depositions, to court and more depositions, and then ultimately payment and ultimately rebuild. Is kind of an interesting claim that I wanted to show you guys. It's fairly involved, so just take a minute. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to talking to you soon. Take care.
Painting pictures for the culture, keep the brushes fresh. Flip the cover with the drummer, passion never rests. Freedom is our teacher under pressure, now we blessed. See, I was so good for the goal. There's one art, one shot, now the future is yours. Go! Yeah! It's one art, one shot, now the future is yours. Go!